the royal
We do
public.
nothing wrong. I mean, we're just perfectly reacting to it. Everyone
Obviously. That's the point of this podcast, is that we are right and people should listen to us. There's your clip, business boys. There's your show promo clip.
Hello and welcome to HR Confessions. I'm Rebecca Taylor.
And I'm Kim Rohrer. We're here bringing you unfiltered perspectives from the world of HR with real stories and hopefully some good advice.
Today's episode it's a little bit of a soap opera. It's like part legal thriller, very much a day in the life of someone who didn't sign up to be the emotional support system for an entire sales org.
Amazing.
I don't know if you're familiar with this.
Oh, who, me? Yeah. Yes, very much.
Have you ever had a job where you're basically everyone's therapist?
Well, I have been working in HR for over 15 years, so I'm just going to go ahead and say yes. That's just HR, right? My favorite modern HR person on TV, Carol from Mythic Quest, there's a whole episode about where she's like, I am not your therapist. But I will say I have used things that I have learned in my own therapy sessions on my coworkers, so you be the judge. Yeah. I don't know.
Yeah. I think there's an interesting discourse now about that too, about how HR really has become even more involved and even more of a therapist-like figure than before. Yeah. And I do think that's an interesting thing to unpack maybe later on in this conversation, maybe throughout. But we do ask a lot more of HR now than we ever had before, like specifically in the last 5 years. And I left HR before COVID, so I'm more HR adjacent now. And I feel like that changed a lot, you know?
It absolutely did. And I think there's a really important boundary for HR leaders to learn, which is like when you need to gently redirect someone to an actual trained professional. It's one thing to be empathetic and be able to like listen and offer a kind heart and blah, blah, blah. But unless you are actually a licensed therapist, you are not a licensed therapist.
And now, a quick word from our sponsor, SkillCycle. SkillCycle is a talent development system that connects performance management to one-to-one coaching and development. The SkillCycle platform aligns individual growth with business objectives through continuous feedback, AI-powered development paths, and leadership training. As a SkillCycle co-founder, I'd love to talk to you out there in our audience, progressive people leaders who really get it. Let's chat over coffee on us to give us some feedback on the episode and about the challenges you're facing today. You might just contribute to a topic on our next episode. Email us today at hrconfessions@skillcycle.com. That's hrconfessions@skillcycle.com.
So be careful with things like, I don't know, making diagnoses or giving people mental health advice, or, you know.
Yeah. Don't worry here. There's no diagnoses in here. There's no mental health advice here.
Oh, thank God.
Or that
emotional support.
Emotional support and the knowing everyone's business. Just like knowing way more about your coworkers than you ever need to because they just tell you everything and you're kind of like, well, I play a little bit of a role in this. Like some of this information is relevant, but there's a lot of extra in here, and that's kind of what we're going to be getting into.
Oh, my favorite.
So, are you ready?
Extra. How could you possibly top last week's episode? I'm not even going to spoil it for people if they haven't listened to last week's the elephant in the calendar episode. I don't know how it could top that, but please
we're
try.
Not competing. We're not competing with episodes. Every episode has its strength.
True.
Every story has its strength.
That's true.
That one was
That's
definitely
true.
That one shocked me.
Oh, that was a keeper for real.
Yeah. This one's probably less shocking and more like, oh yeah, that sounds right.
Great. Can't wait.
So
lay the drama on me.
Yeah. So this is, I actually do not know exactly when this story takes place. We actually didn't cover that part because it's kind of irrelevant. It's sort of like one of those timeless stories. But what's relevant is the industry and the setup of the org. So we're heading to a retail company in the home improvement space.
Ooh.
Think stores where you can buy a hammer, paint samples, maybe a bathtub, but also one of those stores that has like an on-the-road element to it. So there are reps that are not necessarily going to be working in the store, but there are people that might be consulting with designers, consulting with contractors. So the field folks.
Sure.
So our HR hero, we're going to call her Ava. She was a few years into her HR career when she landed this job. This is basically her second ever job at this company. Official title, HR coordinator. Unofficial
Great.
title, in-house therapist, compliance cop, and human paperclip.
Yep.
So I know you've been here. You get into HR because you want to support people, but then you end up
Yes.
auditing I-9s by day and acting like Dr. Phil by phone by night.
Yes. Yes.
Have you ever had to juggle both?
Oh, yes. Within minutes of each other. Sometimes within the same conversation.
Yeah. I mean, and that's like the funny thing is like you could be talking to someone about something very serious while you're trying to file their I-9. And I was always very stressed about getting like the numbers wrong because you know you have to put in
Oh my
the
God. Yeah.
ID number for their passport or whatever. I'm always like, please don't talk to me when I do this or I'm going to flip the numbers and then Homeland Security is going to come for all of us.
Which is less funny in this current political climate.
Yeah.
You want to be getting those documents right. But
Definitely want to get those
the
documents
idea
right.
that you're bouncing from a termination meeting to someone complaining about their smelly coworker to someone unloading about their private life to having to lead an all hands meeting. Like that could be a typical first hour and a half in the office.
Yeah. It's like lots of hats you have to wear. And where Ava's based, so she's based at the corporate office, which is in a central region of the U.S. Let's just say it's not exactly coastal. So it's just somewhere inland where there tend to be corporate headquarters of these places. She's in basically what's the equivalent of like an HR call center, but she's the only person who really works in this call center.
It's a call center of one.
Yes.
Oh, poor Ava. Yes.
So she spends her days like tethered to her headset on the phone with store staff and regional sales reps who are technically, again, in the field, but they seem to think that call Ava is step one for any minor inconvenience. Like they're in the field, they're 2 time zones away, something happens, they're like, oh, let's just call Ava. It's like what she's supposed to do.
Oh, poor Ava. What a shit job.
Yeah. And like those sales reps were a different breed. Now, this is one of those places where they have a lot of lifers. So a lot of the people that are there have been there for a very long time. They know everything about each other. They've kind of like grown up in the organization together. So they do have this over reliance on knowing each other when it comes to actually doing their job.
Do we know how big this company is about? Is it like thousands of people because they have retail stores and
yeah, it's thousands of people, but I don't know exactly how many thousands. It's not like the huge ones, but it's sort of I guess like it'll be like a mid-size home improvement chain.
Gotcha.
And so the way that it was broken out is you had store employees who are mostly hourly. They're working the floor, the register. They're dealing with like customers as they walk into the stores. And then you have, again, those regional sales reps that are on the field and they're commission based. And so they work with contractors and builders. And so because they're commission based, this means big egos and even bigger paydays, especially when bonuses hit. So they have quarterly bonuses. And that means that Christmas is basically coming 4 times a year for them. So it's like everything is like rushing for this bonus. And then bonus day is like a big day.
Yep.
Now, there were always a lot of communications around bonuses. So everyone always knew the dates when bonuses were going to get paid out. It was not a secret. It was always something that was like very regular, very communicated. And most of the reps that were on commission had been working on commission forever. So like you get used to it. And so just for an example to kind of show like how dependent these people were on leaning on each other, Ava would send a memo. It could be a memo of like, the policy has changed to submit for gas reimbursement. Here's a memo on how to do it now. And as soon as that memo would come out, she would get calls to the call center and they'd be like, hey, I saw that you sent a memo. What does it say? What do I do? And she's like, why don't you just read it? And so even though she was normally in this call center alone, she did every once in a while have like another higher level person there with her. The thing that I kind of was a little bit confused about, that Ava was a little bit confused about too, is that a lot of people could work remotely, but she wasn't allowed to. So they're kind of like remotely in this call center, but she was sort of the one that was the front line for every single call. And they only got the rollover calls if they were remote. So she's like fielding everything. And, you know, and a lot of times she was new to HR. So she would want to find the answer if people asked them questions. So they'd be like, what's in this memo? And she'd be like, oh, hold on, let me find it for you and let me get the answer. And there was one time that a more senior coworker was there for her and they just picked up the phone and they were just like, just read the memo. And they hung up on the person.
This is the kind of confidence that only comes from years of experience. There's like, you're not going to do that if it's like your second job ever and you're like a bottom of the ladder coordinator level person. after you've been doing this for a while, you're just like, oh, hell no. I am not answering this question 17 times today when I took the time to put it in a memo and send it to you. Read the fucking memo. Yes. Yeah. Thank you, person who is senior to her. But also, like, I feel so bad. It sounds like Ava's really lonely in this like remote call center where she's just getting a barrage of complaints from people all the time. What a terrible way to spend your days. I'm sorry, Ava.
Yeah. Complaints and just questions, just like obvious questions that are kind of just like, this isn't urgent. You don't really need me for this, but for some reason you're calling me for it. Mm-hmm. And I think there is the level of experience that allows someone to say, you know, just read the memo, don't stop bothering Ava. Right. There's also the level of privilege, the level of familiarity. Because again, a lot of these people are lifers. So that's something that Ava did not yet, I'll guess. She
didn't have the social capital. Yeah, she didn't have the social capital built up. Of course.
Yeah. So one day, on this fateful day that our story takes place, or that our story starts, I should say, she's in the office solo, as usual. Everyone else is remote, and her phone rings. It's a number she doesn't recognize. So a lot of times, like if the reps are calling, they have company phones, so she knows who's calling. So it's not very often that a number calls that she doesn't recognize. So she picks it up, and this woman goes, "Hi, I'm just waiting. I'm just calling to see if payroll ran." So Ava's like, "Who's calling?" Okay. And this woman goes, "I'm Steve's wife." And Ava's like, "Oh, no, ma'am. That is not your business." Like, you're not the employee here. Steve is our employee. This is not your business. So she tells her politely. Yeah. She says politely, "I'm sorry. I can't share any information with you. Have your husband reach out if he has any questions." Mm-hmm. And this is payroll day. So, like, usually she does get more questions than usual on payroll day. It's bonus payroll day. But still, it's like unusual to have a wife
not from
call.
Someone's wife. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. So she's like, "Talk to your husband." And this woman is not hanging up. She asks Ava, she keeps on asking Ava to give her information about whether or not payroll ran. She's like, "I checked our bank account and I don't see it there. And I know that this is usually the time that that my husband would be getting paid. This is usually when his bonus is hit. He's been working for all of these hours and he's made all these deals and you're not paying him for it. This is so unacceptable. This is how you treat your people." And she just kind of starts to spiral. And Ava's just like, "I'm sorry, I still can't share anything. If he's concerned, please have him give me a call." Mm-hmm. So the woman finally hangs up. 10 minutes later, Ava's like, I wonder, you know, she's like thinking, should she call Steve? Do you call Steve? What would you do?
Did payroll
Or do you just wait?
I mean, so for my own edification, I would check to see if payroll ran, because at first I'm like, let me just make sure there's nothing that happened. Make sure there's no problem. Mm-hmm. And then I don't know if Ava knows Steve personally, if she knows him. My first thought when I heard this was, Steve was fired months ago. His wife doesn't know about it. He's pretending to go to work. But I'm like, does Ava know this? Would she know if Steve still worked there? I would probably, if I'm Ava, I'm probably looking Steve up on whatever internal system I have, and I'm contacting him to be like, "Hey, just a heads up, your wife called. I didn't give her any info, but thought you should know."
Yeah. I would probably do the same. I would look up to see if Steve still worked there. Well, first I would look to see if payroll ran. But I would think that if it didn't, it'd be more than just this one person calling. So like odds are it did. And then I also would look up Steve and be like, is Steve even still here? And so Steve was still there. But that's kind of where she left it. She's got other calls coming in. She's like, I'm on the phone all day. If Steve wants to talk, Steve's going to talk.
Yeah, absolutely. I would probably let Steve know that his wife was calling his workplace to ask about his payroll. Just as a kind heads up. Like, hey, I'm not getting involved, but you should know this.
Yeah, I probably would too, but Ava does not.
Well, you know, she's new to this game.
Yeah, yeah. And it turns out she doesn't have to, because 10 minutes later, guess who calls?
Shocking.
It's good old Steve.
What does Steve want to know?
So he goes, "Hi, Ava. Did my wife call you?" Like, "Sir, yes, she called me. She wouldn't let me get off the phone." So,
oh boy.
But Ava doesn't let her inside voice out. She just she just sort of goes like, "Yes, she did." And she gives him the high level. Yes, payroll ran. Yes, the bonus is included. Yes, it's going into the account on file. So he just wanted to make sure, like, did this go into the bank account that's on file? And so he drops this bomb on her. And now she's stuck on this phone with him. He goes, "I changed my bank info a few weeks ago. I wanted to confirm it went to the right place because I'm divorcing her. She's trying to take everything from me. She's been calling every bank I have access to. And this bonus, it's mine. I earned it. I need it. It does not belong to her.
Oh boy.
So little Ava, she's just like, okay. I just
Not
want
my
just
business.
confirming it hit. Right.
Yeah.
She's like, it hit the account. It did the thing it was supposed to do. The account updated. It's in there. The right taxes are taken out. Like, it's all good. And so there's also the side of her that is still a human, and we humans love.
We do.
Like,
We do.
love to kind of know what's going on, and like, I don't know. People are just nosy, and
That's
people,
why Bravo
including me.
exists. It's because we love to snoop on other people's drama.
Yep, exactly. So Ava's now a captive audience. So this man, so Steve, he decides to launch into the entire divorce backstory.
Oh no.
As if he needs to like justify to Ava why he hasn't told his wife,
Ava
why
doesn't
he's divorcing
care.
his wife.
I mean, she cares, but Ava doesn't need to know all of this. She just needs to know what bank account to put your paycheck into, and you can handle the rest with your lawyer, Steve.
Yep.
Oh boy.
But like, what's funny is that apparently he tells her that this woman has done everything from supposedly stealing his login info to all of his other banks to trying to intercept his paychecks. Like, she has been accessing his credit cards, or at least attempting to access his credit cards. So it probably is good that Ava knows that this is happening. So at least like she's just on alert and can let other people know, like, if Steve's wife calls, like, please don't tell her anything. Yeah. Like, this is really bad.
Oh boy.
So the thing is, like, he's still on the phone with her and he's telling her all of this stuff, but then the phone starts ringing again. And it's the wife. It's Steve's wife. While Ava's on the phone with Steven. Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
So the thing with the way this call center works is that Ava's the first line, but after a certain amount of time, when it rings enough, it rolls up to the next person who's remote, who's not there, who has no idea what's going on. So Ava's like, oh my God, Steve, shut up. I have to answer this call. It's your wife. I don't want it going to someone else who then might give her, not that she thought that anyone was going to be giving them information that they shouldn't, but she's like, everyone should probably know what's going on. Also, so that no one does what they're not supposed to do. Because everyone knows Steve's wife. Because again, everyone's worked there forever. So, you know, there's a lot of familiarity with houses at places like this.
Oh boy.
So she finally gets, so she lets Steve go. She gets back on the phone with the wife and she's like, hello, Mrs. Steve. And she's just like, yeah, she's like, I still don't see the money in the bank account. And I really think that it needs to be there. And, she's like, I'm seeing a lot of issues with this. I don't understand where it could be. And Ava's like, I promise you, like, you should really talk to your husband. Your husband's the one who can, really help you understand like where this money is. Because she can't say that it hit the bank account because she might say, well, what bank account did it hit? And she can't give out that information. So it's just like, she still has to have like this balance.
Oh boy.
So it doesn't stop there. This woman keeps calling, Steve's wife keeps calling for 3 straight days. Like, she just keeps calling. And every time, Ava now has just this dread. Wife. Yes, exactly. So how do you handle a persistent family member, like, who clearly knows something's up, but is playing like it's not happening? Because this woman didn't mention anything about divorce. She's just acting like nothing's happening. So, like, what's the protocol if you're stuck in the crossfire of a divorce that you did not ask to be part of?
I say, Steve, she keeps calling. I can't give her any information. You need to deal with this. Here's what I'm going to do as HR. I am going to tell her, I'm sorry, I can't give you any information about that. You'll need to speak with Steve. And then I hang up the phone. And then if I need to block her number, I block her number. And I tell everyone else in HR, this is the plan. I probably have to like run it by my boss because I'm a junior employee, but I run it by my boss. Say, here's what's going on. We need to not take her calls anymore, or we need to just have a party line that we all say, which is like, I'm sorry, I can only give that information to employees. You'll need to speak with Steve. And then just start blocking her calls if she doesn't stop calling. Because there's nothing else that Ava can do.
No.
There's nothing else she can do in this situation.
And as Steve's wife keeps calling, Steve also keeps calling too.
Right.
To just make sure that she hasn't said anything. And she's like, can you just please talk to your wife? This is not
like, you need
cool.
to stop this. This is taking up way too much of Ava's mental real estate.
Yeah. And so she doesn't even know if Steve's wife knows that they're getting divorced yet either.
Totally.
So she's
Steve
like,
could just be like laying the groundwork for
exactly
their divorce. And it is not HR's job to get in the middle of this. It is HR's job to say, Steve, your money hit your paycheck. Steve's wife, there's nothing else I can tell you. I have nothing else to tell you.
Yep. And every time Steve calls, and every time he calls, he just sort of unloads on Ava.
Of course
and he's just like, oh, he's like, she's just been manipulating me for so long. She's trying to take everything that I have. She hasn't had a job in a long time, so I'm the one who's working towards everything. And Ava's just like, this is not my business. And also, this is not the mental load that I'm looking for. And
this is a really
I don't want to know this.
This is a really good example of when HR needs to remind people what their job is and isn't, and say like, I appreciate that you're going through a tough time right now, but unfortunately, like, I need to get back to work. I don't have time to speak on the phone right now. If you would like to schedule some time to chat in the future, please do. But like right now, I'm sorry, I can't talk about this. Yeah. And you sort of have to get a little bit of a backbone as an HR person and defend your boundaries.
Yeah. Yeah. I do think it's a really good point, is like, you do need to remind people what your job actually is, because HR as a role just does get very conflated with so many other things. Yeah. And that's kind of the thing that really spurned this for Ava. Like, she's like, I'm supposed to be doing, I already have a lot on my plate, because even without this emotional support side, there's still a lot to be done in HR. She still
has a whole job.
Right. She has a whole other job.
Yeah.
I don't even know if I'd offer Steve time to talk elsewhere. I wouldn't even offer, and I would be like,
I'd probably say, like, if you have any follow-up questions, please schedule time on my calendar. Yeah. Because I don't want him, what I want to stop him from calling me. I want to stop like the pop-in calls. Yeah. I want to stop him from calling me just because he wants to talk. If he has a question, then he can email me or he can set up time on my calendar. But otherwise, I'm sorry, but I need to get back to my work.
Yeah. Yeah. And what's funny is that even as this keeps on getting worse, so like the wife still keeps calling and she's still trying to escalate it. So she's like, it's the same script. She goes, I just want to understand why you're withholding money. I'm friends with the CEO. I'm calling the newspaper. Oh, no. I know the regional VP and he'll make sure this gets handled. And the one thing that Ava knows, though, is that because this company is a company of lifers, they take care of their own. So she's also kind of like, go ahead and call the CEO, because at the end of the day, the CEO is going to have Steve's back. Right. Regardless of the fact that he's the CEO and that's his employee, there's also that's just the relationship that they have with them. So she's also kind of just like, you know what, let it happen. And what I think is like the thing that was not clear to Ava, and so therefore is not clear to us, was Steve trying to let the whole company know he was getting divorced this way, almost? Like, was this sort of, without stopping it, was this his way of showing, like, this is why I'm divorcing her. Do you see how she's manipulating me and how she's manipulating things? So it's like he doesn't have to explain himself.
Dudes are weird. Could be. Yeah. I also, at this point, if I'm Ava, I would have escalated this to someone more senior than me to be like, all right, boss, I've been dealing with this for a week. Like, clearly this woman does not respect me. Steve does not respect me enough to, like, stop calling me. I need to use you as a lever to reroute this path that we're on. Yeah. And that's where, like, she might need to bring in the big guns to stop this.
And so she did, because I did ask her, I was like, was anybody else involved in this? So she did tell her manager that this was happening, but her manager wasn't very helpful because her manager knows the wife. So she's kind of just like, she's just like, just answer her questions, and then, as best as you can, just keep reinforcing the message. The manager's
like, please don't have her call me. I don't want to talk to her.
Yes.
I don't want to talk to Steve.
Yeah, and she also feels like she's probably in a weird spot because she's like, I know this woman, and now all of a sudden I can't tell her that her husband's going to divorce her. Like, if anything, Ava's the best one to handle it because she's the least close to them. But it still is just like, it's like, you still don't get to do that. You don't get to do that to poor Ava. And so all of a sudden, one day, the calls just stop. There's all of a sudden just radio silence, and the calls just stop. And it goes 3, 4, 5 days, no call, no nothing. And Ava's like, she's a little nervous because she's like, what happened? This woman didn't seem to be well, which is a true concern. It's like, she didn't seem that she was well. Steve seemed to be very worried about her finding out what was going on. So what could have happened? Like, did they harm each other? You know, so that's when she starts to kind of like spiral, and she's like, oh my God, do I call the cops, or do I report this? Do I
this
say
woman
that I
stopped calling me?
Yeah. She's like, she stopped calling me, but I think that something might have happened. I have no proof, and I have no, like, all I know, this is just my assumption. So poor Ava is there. She's just now going through her own sort of, her own spiral. So she's now in this like divorced vortex, a divortex, if I may.
Vortex.
She's just like sucked in.
Oh, poor
She's
Ava.
just sucked into this thing with everybody. And I think like, and then all of a sudden, just like, as fast as she entered it, the wife disappears. And then a few weeks later, guess who calls?
Oh, now I'm like,
it's our friend Steve.
I was gonna say, is it Steve? Is he calling?
Yeah. So Steve finally calls. So she was worried that something happened. Yeah, she was worried that something happened to Steve. So he calls, and he's finally just like, yeah, she got served. I've got everything rerouted now. He's like, I finally served her divorce papers. We're now proceeding with it, so she knows what's going on. So Ava's like, okay. Again, I didn't need to know that, but I'm glad to know. I mean, I would say
I think it's good that Steve told her, because the last she had heard, it was a big old mess, and she was being plopped into the middle of it. And at least knowing that they're now going through a divorce, now she knows where the lines are. Instead of being in this wiggly space of like, they're getting divorced, but the wife doesn't know. And so she keeps calling, and Steve is sort of like financially withholding from her because he just, you know, she knew too much. She needed that button on the end of it to know. Yeah. Their divorce is happening. The wife knows. Steve is dealing with his shit.
Yeah. All of his money's now going into a bank account that his wife doesn't know about, which
it was before. But now she knows why, so she's going to stop harassing Ava. Like, yeah. But that's the level of detail that she needs. She needs the level of detail of, hey, Ava, sorry to have put you through all of that. Just wanted to let you know that the divorce proceedings have officially started, so she shouldn't be calling anymore. Now she knows what's going on. You shouldn't hear from her again.
Yeah.
Or me, because I'm now in therapy.
Yeah, I would just be like, all I would need to know is that she's not going to call me anymore, and that there's nothing else that I have to do.
Yeah, exactly. She deserves that much.
Yeah, no, she does. And so I think that like what was so funny is like this is kind of what happens when you work in places where you have people who've been there for so long, and you have these lifers that are just kind of like there's less of a blur between their work life and their life because you know, they've just, a lot of these relationships.
They've been to each other's weddings and divorce parties.
Exactly. And, you know, that's what makes a lot of this complicated. There's also the weird kind of, not weird, but the different type of dynamic between companies that are structured like this, where you have your corporate office, your store reps, and then your field reps, compared to just sort of like an average office, right? And what I think is so interesting about this one is that Steve didn't really have anybody else to talk to.
Right.
Because he was kind of just like the rep on the road. And yes, he had a manager, it was like the regional, you know, sales rep.
Right. But he's just a sales rep like out in the field. He's essentially a team of one.
Right. Exactly. Much like Ava, who's like in her office as a team of one. And so even though this company has thousands of employees, there's still these very lonely pockets and lonely corners. And this is sort of when two of them kind of collided, because Ava was like, she's like, well, I'm now really involved in this, and I'm kind of dealing with it alone, even though my boss knows, even though, you know, people know what's happening, but I don't have that social connection to other things. And Steve's kind of in this same boat. And so that was kind of like the
and then that's how Ava and Steve fell in love.
Yes, well,
no. I'm assuming that is not the twist ending to this story.
I don't know. At the time, Ava didn't mention anything about it, but probably not.
She didn't mention that she's now married to Steve. No, that wasn't that didn't enough.
Well, you don't have to be in love. You don't have to have gotten married if you fell in love like however many years ago when you were getting divorced. It could have been something that happened and then stopped happening.
True. You never know.
Yeah.
Oh,
no, I don't think that
lives are messy.
Yep.
I mean, I literally have scheduled people through their divorces when I would manage other people's calendars. I have been in that position of knowing more than I wanted to know about my coworkers.
Yeah.
I've had coworkers who have dated each other and then broken up. I've had coworkers who have dated each other and gotten married, and like been hearing about coworkers' issues with their in-laws who are the parents of another one of our coworkers, like things that like that I didn't need to know.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
And I will say that when you are in HR, it can get a little blurry when you're getting this kind of personal information from someone you already have a relationship with, which I think is why Ava's boss didn't want to get involved, because she's, you know, like if Steve is her friend at work, she doesn't want to get involved with Steve's relationship drama with his wife. For Ava, she's a little more distanced from it. It's like I've had trouble with those blurred lines in the past of like, do I want to know this? Do I get involved because you're my friend, even though you are my coworker?
Yeah.
Versus like when it's a coworker that you're not personally friends with, it's easier to draw that boundary, I guess.
Yeah.
I don't know.
That's the hard part. That's like the really hard part. Is the thing that worked in Ava's favor in this case is that the wife wasn't also an employee.
Yeah.
So yes, an employee still wouldn't be entitled to payroll information about another employee, but
Right.
it's still, she had a degree of separation that helped as much as something can help in one of these scenarios. And there's like, I think, so here's the question where we talk about sort of figuring out how to kind of have those boundaries. Where's the line between empathy, so supporting an employee as the empathetic HR person, and liability? And I don't mean from a legal stance, I mean like responsibility to do something about this. Where's the line?
I mean, it's so situational, right? I think for most employee circumstances like this, I think the line has to be probably closer than you want it to be. By that I mean like you have to know less and get involved in less than you might if you were just like an average human being on the street, or if you were just another coworker who sat next to this person in the office or whatever. Friend to friend dishing about your relationship drama. There is a difference when you are on the HR side of things, because you have access to so much information about people. Like when you know someone's home address, when you know someone's bank account information, when you know their performance reviews and status, like when you know their payroll, you carry so many secrets around with you about people that to add in their personal life secrets and like drama that's going on with them, it's just, to me, as nosy and curious as I might be, I have to be really careful about how much I learn about people's private lives. Yeah. Because I already know so much about their private lives that like there's a risk that I will want to get involved, and not that I will, because I'm a professional, but like, I don't know. It's just easier if you can separate, and especially if you get to a place where like someone's partner is calling you at work, like you just got to back away from that. That's I guess a line that's, I'm not really articulating this well. I'm realizing as the words are coming out of my mouth, but we're all humans here.
Gotta balance it.
When it goes from like water cooler conversation to impacting my ability to do my work, I feel like that's maybe where the line is. Yeah.
Yeah. I think that's a good line, is kind of just like, okay, there's also the element of in HR, you do know a lot more about someone's personal life than you would if you were in a different position, just by nature of,
Right.
you're administering benefits, right? Like, they have a family.
Right.
Like it could just be
that
something
they've had a baby.
that.
You probably know
Right.
they're getting divorced if they're taking someone off their benefits, or they're asking to reroute their paychecks, or
Right. Like
but that doesn't mean you have to get involved. Like you can know that information without getting involved in the situation.
Yeah.
I think that's what I was trying to get to for the last several minutes.
Yeah, I think you got there. We got there.
Yeah, we got there eventually. That's all.
I think there's also like this is why, we've talked about this in other episodes too, but it's why it's also really hard to have friends at work when you're in HR, because you do always have to kind of walk that line of, I can't really be your friend, is why it's so funny, because there's that whole quote, like, HR is not your friend. And it's just like, no, but for different reasons than you would normally be saying.
Right.
That.
Right. Well, and like, how good are you as an individual human being existing in this world? How good are you at separating and compartmentalizing what you know about people? So like, if I know that you're about to get fired, can I still be friends with you and act like nothing's wrong? And like, how much does that eat away at my conscience when we're like, you know, taking our kids to the park or watching a movie or doing something, if I'm like holding all this information that, and I mean, this happened at a previous company I worked for when I was orchestrating a layoff. There were people that got laid off who I considered friends. And afterwards, you know, I said, you know, I'm really sorry. Like, I couldn't say anything to you. And they're like, no, I totally understand. Like, that was your job. Like, you couldn't say anything. But there were people, like, that wasn't the case with everybody. There were people that were like, I thought we were friends. You should have given me a heads up. And it's like, I would have loved to, but I couldn't. I can't do that. Right.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's why sometimes it's almost like easier to keep a distance, but in keeping that distance, sometimes it's hard to then lean into that empathy side.
That's why you need your HR friends who don't work at your company.
Yes.
That's why, like, in my early days, I had a mentor who was at a different company within our same investment portfolio. So she kind of knew like the landscape we were in. And we had a consistent weekly meeting, and it wasn't like formal coaching. It was just like, so that I had someone more senior than me that I could talk to, who knew what was going on in the company, because I met with her every week and was like, here's the drama, here's what's going on, here's the personalities I'm dealing with, here's this crisis I'm trying to manage. And she could give me advice, and she could give me like solidarity and empathy, and I could dump out to her instead of dumping onto my coworkers. Do you know the ring theory of like grief and dumping? For people who don't know, it's like, imagine like concentric circles, like a target or a bullseye. And in the center is the person who is at the center of the crisis, like whether that's the grieving person or the person who's getting divorced from their wife or whatever. Right. You, as the circle of connections and community widens, you don't dump inward. You only ever dump outward. So like, if I'm in the second circle, people who are just listening to this, I'm sorry, you can't see all my beautiful hand motions. But if I'm in the second circle, like, I don't dump on the grieving person, be like, oh my God, this is so hard for me to be watching you grieve.
On the third.
You dump on the third layer. You say like, wow, this is so hard for me watching my friend go through this. And then the person who's even more removed is like, wow, that does seem hard. And they dump on the person outside of them. And everyone just dumps on someone who's farther away from the grief than the person around them. All that is to say that is, with HR, it is similar. Like, you need someone to talk to who's outside of your immediate situation, because they are going to not be as emotionally invested. They are going to have a level of like psychological removal from the situation to be able to think more clearly and rationally about it. Like, if Ava was able to call a friend who didn't work at her company but did work in HR, and she could be like, hey, there's some crazy shit going down right now with this coworker of mine who's getting divorced. Like, I don't know what to do. Yeah. That person who's not friends with anyone at the company and has no stake in it, you know, they have no skin in the game, would probably tell her like, girl, you need to not talk to his wife anymore.
Yeah. Yeah. And they could probably be more objective. I mean, they could be more objective too.
Because they're not her boss who's friends with them.
Right.
It's not one of her coworkers who also knows these people. And it's less of a violation of confidentiality and trust if you're like talking about it to someone who doesn't know any of the people involved, who, you know, you can use a pseudonym or you can use no names. You can just be like, there's someone at my company and this is what I'm dealing with. Versus if it's someone who works for your same organization, like, then it's more like gossip that's going to get around, or you might worry about the person finding out or whatever. It's just safer and easier to share these things in confidence with someone who is removed from the situation.
Yeah. It's funny that you said gossip, because I was just thinking about that too, because there's no secret for those who listen to this. Like, Kim and I are very into gossip as a concept for gossip. how it generates work, or how it affects work. And we're very inspired by the Normal Gossip podcast and Kelsey McKinney's book, You Didn't Hear This From Me. And it's basically just, you know, if you take the definition of gossip as talking about two people talking about someone who's not in the room, it's almost like that type of gossip is so important to be able to have when you're in HR. So having the ability to kind of have your HR network, your people you can talk to in trying to talk through your situation
you're dealing with. Yeah, absolutely.
Because like, if you think about it, if you work in product, right, you might need to talk to a mentor about something that you're trying to fix within product. But what's the product when you're in HR? The product is people. So it's like, if I'm talking about my work challenges, I need to talk about people, because that's just what it is. And that is the thing that can keep you grounded and sane. It's just about obviously keeping it anonymous and, keeping it to the facts, but also processing so that you can show up better for that person at the end of the day when they do come back to you.
Yeah. So that you're not processing inward at the person who is dumping out to you.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like Ava shouldn't be processing at Steve, right? Because Steve is processing out at Ava about his divorce.
Right.
Ava's not going to turn around and be like, Steve, you're killing me with this.
Yeah.
I mean, she might if she has a really strong relationship, but exactly.
He's like, I'm not doing great with this either, Ava.
And it was like, Steve, this is really hard for me. And like, that's not compassionate.
Yeah. I think you've given some really good advice in this for any HR person who might be struggling with the balance, because it is a very real kind of part of the job, is just kind of balancing the emotions and there's almost like, I read something or I heard something where it was like divorce lawyers were talking about how they spend a lot of their time with really good people going through the worst experience of their life. And so you see really good people being the worst version of themselves.
Totally.
And there's a version of that in HR too, is like a lot of times when we're dealing with employees, it's like we're dealing with maybe the worst day that they might be having or the worst version of themselves. And, we do have to have that emotional intelligence to be there to help them and do the thing that they need without that worst day energy affecting our ability to navigate it, and like not letting it make us be worse at our job. But then, there is, I think what companies need to think about is what resources they have or they can have for employees that are going through difficult stuff, because it can't all just be on HR. It can't all just be on leaders and managers. Having resources available to employees like an EAP, like great benefits that allow them to access therapy. Those are really important things for companies to provide, I think, because people usually need more than just their work people to handle stuff going on in their life.
Yep.
It's an important investment.
It is. It is.
Yeah. Wow. That's all for this episode.
Thank you for that.
Do you have any final thoughts for Ava or for someone who might be in her position?
Ava, I hope this was long enough ago that you can look back on it and laugh, and that you are in a happier place, not alone in a call center. Thank you for this tale. Yeah.
Thank you everybody for listening. And, if you have a story that's equal parts, how is this real? And, oh my God, this actually is real. Send it our way. There's going to be a link in the show notes. We love reading every single one of your submissions. You can also email us at hrconfessions@skillcycle.com. You can DM me on LinkedIn. I get a lot of these. We'll set up chats and we're able to kind of talk it through, and I can ask all my nosy questions to help to really mold the story. So
I'm a little bit jealous that you get to receive all the stories, because listeners, I don't get to hear these stories before Rebecca reads them to me on air. And occasionally someone will tell me a story and I'm like, stop. Don't tell me. Tell Rebecca.
Come to me.
So I'm missing out on all the hilarious community stories these days. But I really appreciate you bringing them to me.
Yeah. And thank you for always being a great co-host and for listening. And this is actually, we didn't say this in the beginning, but this is our season finale. So we're going to be going on hiatus for a few weeks while we gear up for season 3. So we've got lots of time to get some new stories in. So don't be shy, because we want to kick off season 3 with like a really spicy take. So
oh my God,
hit us up.
I can't wait.
Me either. All right. Bye,
Thanks, everybody.